Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving headfirst into one of the most fascinating and, let's be honest, incredibly complex theological debates out there. We are going to carefully unpack the true nature, origin, and timeline of Jesus Christ's identity. This is a topic that has literally sparked intense discussion for centuries. Our goal today, to lay out the arguments structurally and completely impartially, so you can really grasp the core of this ongoing dialogue. Okay, let's jump right in. So here is the massive driving question at the heart of this entire debate. Was Jesus Christ already the Son of God before the universe was even created, existing eternally in that specific role? Or was the title of Son designated to him at a specific point in time, like during his earthly incarnation or his resurrection? It's a really profound question about timeline and identity, and as you'll see, both perspectives draw on very specific textual evidence to make their case. Here's our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the mystery of his identity and the debate between origin and eternal sonship. Then, we'll look at a major point of contention, his status compared to angels. After that, we'll tackle the intellectual peak of the discussion with a concept called kenosis. Finally, we'll unpack the semantic debate around the word sanatan before finishing up with the ultimate almighty question.
All right, Section 1, Origin versus Eternal Sonship. Let's look at when exactly Jesus was designated as the Son.
This is where we hit a direct textual collision. On one side, proponents of eternal sonship point straight to Proverbs 8. They highlight that wisdom existed, was possessed, and was installed by God before the oceans or mountains were ever created. Many interpret this wisdom as the pre-incarnate Christ, meaning he existed eternally alongside the Father. But on the flip side, the counter-argument leans heavily on Psalm 2 and Hebrews 1, which explicitly say, "Today I have begotten you." That phrase implies a very specific moment in time, a literal day of becoming. So one side sees eternal existence as the Son, the other sees a specific moment of designation. And to further support that specific timeline, debaters bring up this incredibly fascinating quote from Luke chapter 1, verse 32. The angel Gabriel tells Mary, "He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High." The absolutely crucial point here is the future tense. Debaters ask, if he was already the Son eternally, why say he will be called the Son? This fuels the argument that the specific title of Son was actually applied upon his human incarnation and resurrection, rather than it being an eternal title. Moving on to Section 2, Angel or Son. This brings up a major clash over Jesus' status compared to heavenly angels. If you look at Hebrews chapter 1, it emphasizes that while both angels and Jesus are heavenly beings, it draws a massive line in the sand between them. Did God ever say, "Today I have begotten you" to an angel? No way. Only to Jesus. Was any angel appointed heir of all things? No. And most importantly, when the firstborn is brought into the world, the text says the angels are actually commanded to worship him. One side uses this logic to absolutely cement that Jesus is entirely unique, uncreated, and far, far above any angelic category. But, the discussion doesn't just stop there. The counter perspective looks at the Old Testament appearances of the angel of the Lord, visiting figures like Moses. They argue that the root word for angel simply translates to messenger. So the debate essentially asks this: could the pre-incarnate Christ have functioned as a divine messenger, a representative of God, without actually being a created angelic entity? It's a really deep discussion about function versus nature. Was he just taking the role of a messenger, or is he actually made of the same substance as the angels? Okay, Section 3, Kenosis, or the concept of emptying. How exactly does a limitless, divine being interact with the strict limitations of human existence? The answer hinges on this one word, kenosis. It's a theological doctrine derived directly from Philippians chapter 2. Kenosis literally means emptying. This is the concept that Christ voluntarily emptied himself of his divine privileges and independent authority. Now, he didn't stop being divine, but he set aside his glory to take human form and enter a state of total, utter submission to the Father's will while on earth. Let's walk through how this timeline of kenosis works, step by step. Step 1, he exists in a divine form, sharing eternal glory. Step 2, the actual kenosis, the willing surrender and emptying of that privilege. Step 3, taking human form, experiencing hunger, pain, and showing total obedience. And finally, Step 4, because of this ultimate surrender, he is exalted by the Father and given a name above all names. This structured flow is absolutely vital for understanding how debaters reconcile an all-powerful being becoming a vulnerable human. To put that into perspective, the contrast here is just staggering. In his pre-incarnate state, which is referenced in John 17:5, Jesus shared profound glory with the Father before the world even existed. Yet in his earthly post-kenosis state, Jesus famously states, "I can do nothing on my own." The debaters highlight this absolute contrast. During his time on earth, he relied entirely on the Father for his life, his teachings, and his miracles. It's a beautiful picture of total surrender, shifting from possessing shared glory to becoming completely dependent.
That brings us to Section 4, defining Sanatan. Let's explore a deep semantic disagreement regarding this word and how it impacts the whole concept of sonship. So, what does Sanatan actually mean? Well, it translates to eternal, having no beginning or end. But the crucial part of this definition, and really the root of the friction here, is the concept of being entirely unchanging. If something is truly Sanatan, it cannot morph, evolve, or become something it previously wasn't. And here is how that definition creates a huge logical clash. Argument A states that if Jesus is Sanatan, he cannot change. Therefore, he must have been the Son eternally. He could not have become the Son at his birth or resurrection because a Sanatan being just doesn't undergo a change in nature. Argument B, however, counters this by saying Jesus himself is indeed eternal, but the specific title and role of Son was a later designation. They argue his essence didn't change, but his relational title did when he entered human history. It's a bit of a mind-bender, isn't it?
And just to complicate the idea of an eternal role a bit more, 1 Corinthians 15 details the predicted future of the Son's role. It states that after Christ subdues all things and completes his mission, the Son will actually submit himself to the Father, handing the kingdom back so that God becomes all in all. This prompts the debaters to ask, does the specific role of the Son eventually conclude? And if the role has an end, did it also have a beginning? It's a fascinating structural bookend to that origin debate we started with. Finally, Section 5, the almighty question. As we approach the end of our explainer, we are looking at the exact cliffhanger where this dense theological debate is heading next. This leaves us with a final provocative question. Is Jesus the Almighty God, the Sarva Shakti Men? The debaters absolutely acknowledge his immense power, but they draw a distinct theological line between being a mighty God and being the singular Almighty God. This perfectly sets the stage to debate whether that ultimate title belongs solely to the Father or to the Son as well. And that is exactly where the discussion is heading next. Through this explainer, we've broken down some incredibly deep concepts today, from the timeline of sonship to the comparison with angels, the self-emptying of kenosis, and the unchanging nature of the eternal. We've seen how structured inquiry helps untangle even the most profound biblical mysteries. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.